Welcome to Revolving Culture, a podcast where we talk about culture and how it affects us in our lives. And it revolves around us. We're almost to Thanksgiving. Actually, by the time you're listening to this, Thanksgiving has come and gone. And the gobble squatch has consumed us all. Today we're talking about cryptozoology and all the cryptids that people want to believe exist. The Sasquatches, the Yetis, the Lochness Monsters, the Chupacabras, all of the nice little Jersey Devils that everybody likes to believe in. We're going to jump right into them. Right now, we've got Andrew, Robby, and myself, Jeremy, on this episode. Sadly, Vicky and Marty couldn't be with us.
They are no longer with us.
They were consumed
by the gobble squatch.
It was terrifying.
We made it out alive.
What'd you say?
We made out alive. We made it out.
We made it out alive.
That's what kept us from
by
being
the skin of our teeth.
We made out a lot. As Andrew said, it was a fucking orgy.
Yeah. Gobble.
Blood.
Gobble squatch is a rabid homophobe.
we all gobbled cocks.
This podcast will be flagged mature and explicit.
We don't have Marty with us, so we are somewhat directionless. But we're going to be talking about cryptids and cryptozoology. It's a touchy subject. Some people, are very sensitive about which of these animals might be real and which are pure fiction.
They're all real, Jeremy.
There's a possibility.
They're all real.
There's a possibility. It seems that if you want to keep an absolute open mind, there's a possibility that they're all real until proven to not be real. But I feel like with these things like this, there's the potential to be proven real is always there because the potential to be disproven is not available. It's either proven real or potentially proven real. With a lot of these things, you can't disprove them. Because if you say, the chupacabra is just a hairless coyote or something like that. It's a wolf that has been afflicted by mange or something like that. Well, what you've caught is a hairless coyote, but the chupacabra might still be out there sucking goat's blood. So there's with some of these animals and maybe a lot of the believers in them, like the Bigfoot and stuff like that, the possibility of them being real is forever. It's never ending.
Yeah.
Any questions?
Word.
Cryptozoology is classified as a pseudoscience, which is what Jeremy's talking about whenever he speaks of what's the word? Just skepticism behind all of these creatures. As a pseudoscience, it's classified with things like ESP, channeling, people who do palm readings, things of that nature, along with other more mundane things like what's that? Feng Shui is also a
Feng Shui, astrology, one of the more popular. Feng Shui and astrology are super popular, and people who profess to be experts in those fields or claim to be experts in those fields, say there's a science to it, but it's not true. They don't follow the scientific method.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I guess a renowned cryptozoologist, George M. Eberhardt, classifies 10 types of mystery animals under the cryptozoological umbrella. Those include distribution anomalies, known animals reported outside their normal range, like the anomalous big cats of the UK, or undescribed, unusual, or outsized variations of known species, which include the giant anacondas reported from Amazonia or the spotted lions of East Africa. As you can see, it's kind of, like I said, more mundane stuff. Would even fall under that cryptozoological umbrella. Survivals of species known only from the fossil record into modern times would also be included, like the Mokele Mbembe of Central Africa, sometimes described as a living dinosaur. Lingerlings are survivals of species known from the fossil record much later into historical times than currently thought, like the woolly mammoth, which was presumed extinct in 1200 BCE, but occasionally purported to have survived into later eras. And then animals not known from the fossil record, nor related to any known species, like Mr. Bigfoot, or sea serpents like the Lochness Monster. Or one thing I thought was funny about researching cryptozoology was the fact that so many of them are just like Bigfoot or Loch Ness Monster copycats. I'm not certain if they were the first or if they were just the most popular of that type,
Yeah, I think that it's almost like branding plays a big part in these things. Like Sasquatch, the Yeti, those are all, and the other variations of, those are all, as far as we're concerned, in Middle America, Bigfoot. And Bigfoot is a huge brand. The Loch Ness Monster is a huge brand. It's a friggin' tourist attraction. It brings a lot of money to the area, to Loch Ness Lake. These things, like a lot of generations old stories, there are different versions and variations on the subjects and characters, but the most popular ones stick out and become a brand that people make money off of.
Yeah, it's the same thing.
There's definitely, a sort of cottage industry built around certain examples of cryptids, most notably Nessie and Bigfoot, mostly because they're the most identifiable and arguably the most famous examples, at least in Western culture, of cryptids, and there's just numerous people ready to present their findings about their evidence of the existence of either of those creatures.
Yeah, and it seems to be almost like a communal thing, like a way of a region or people of a region to kind of identify themselves and join together and tell these stories and have fun with it. And then you have people who are more in depth with their enjoyment of it, or just this obsessive search for something that may or may not exist. It's an odd paradigm. Going through the list of cryptid types, we also have mythical animals with a zoological basis. So like the griffin, which of course is like a amalgamation of different types of animal, fall under that. So I guess as long as it's not, it has some basis in the known world, it would fall under that cryptid classification.
There are a few cryptids that are, more than a few that are amalgamations of different species, but it seems like here on the list we've got the jackalope, which is an antlered rabbit or hare, like a big rabbit with antlers on it. That's just the fascination of the idea that a rabbit would have horns. I mean, that's very strange, but more in tune with human. I guess to say human sexual fantasies is the idea of man mating with animal. And so you've got like goat people and dog people and stuff like that, wolf people, werewolves and stuff like that. The crossbreeding of humans with animals. There are several different cryptids that match that fantasy of man melding with animal. And
I wonder if that's like a sign of just a rural, like the rural fascination with these sorts of creatures. Like, how often do you hear about a large city having a belief in a certain cryptid or something like that?
Yeah. Cryptids do seem to be a very rural. The encounters with such beings, be them fantastic beings or otherworldly alien beings, they are often very rural encounters. It's a good point.
Yeah, at least in my research, I didn't really find any from one modern day, like real substantial modern day encounters, other than I guess the Mothman might be one that kind of stands out in terms of like it being recent. With those inclusions that include, mythical animals with a zoological basis, seemingly paranormal or supernatural entities with some animal-like characteristics, known hoaxes or probable misidentifications, the ones that we've spoken about so far, there were also exclusions from classification as a cryptid that we ran across, which includes, and kind of in a weird way, marks cryptozoology as a chase of something that is, for lack of a better word, weird. But those exclusions include insignificance. The cryptids must be big, weird, dangerous, or significant to humans in some way. The lack of controversy. Someone needs to observe a mystery animal and someone else needs to discredit the sighting. Cryptozoologists function as interventionists between witnesses and skeptical scientists. There's also erratics. Just because an animal is out of place doesn't necessarily mean that it's a cryptid. But if there is a pattern shown that a new species of that animal has made an alien place their home, then they fall under they would fall under cryptozoology, I guess. Bizarre humans, for whatever reason, are excluded from classifications as a cryptid. Angels or demons. Paranormal or supernatural is admitted only if it has an animal shape. And lastly, aliens. It says, arrived a long time ago and thus classify as residents. I don't really understand that.
I guess if they came here like thousands of a millennia or so ago and just been hanging out. There are several stories and movies involving aliens that rise up from the ocean or rise up, from within civilizations to take over the world or whatever. I think some people are just afraid of, there's xenophobia for one, and then there are people who are afraid that their next door neighbor might be from another place, that they can't trust their origins and their intentions. So
it sounds
seems like a lot of these are fucked up psychological the problems.
It almost sounded like you're speaking from personal. Let's see. No.
No.
So, Is it a desire to? I think in one of our previous episodes we were talking about. It was when we were talking about tripping.
Legend tripping.
Legend tripping. Do you think it's something along those same lines?
Yeah, cryptozoology definitely. There's definitely legend tripping involved. Going to Lochness Lake, the trek, the pilgrimage to Lochness Lake is absolutely legend tripping. Going to New Jersey to maybe hopefully catch a glimpse of the Jersey Devil, or going to parts of Middle America to see Bigfoot, to try to catch a whiff of that awful stench that apparently Bigfoot gives off. That's legend tripping for sure. So with so many people gathering around these specific areas hoping to catch a glimpse of these cryptids, we get a huge following of specific, more popular creatures that are classified as cryptozoological interests. Do you guys have any favorites of these cryptids?
I looked up a lot. I don't know if I have a personal favorite, but I like the ones in Texas. Actually, the ones in Texas aren't as impressive as some of the others that I read about, but I do want to kind of touch on them since we are a Texas-based podcast. There's one called Big Bird, but it's not a yellow celebrity bird or anything. It's in 1976, residents of South Texas, Rio Grande Valley, were terrorized by a huge ape-faced winged beast, which according to eyewitness reports bore 2 blood red eyes. And there's not much else out there about Big Bird. Didn't harm anyone. There were no photos taken, but he's still
claimed
out there.
Sightings.
Yeah, claimed sightings. There's also, we've talked about in an earlier podcast, the chupacabra in South Texas. There's also black-eyed children or black-eyed kids. They're an urban legend of supposed paranormal creatures that resemble children between ages 6 and 16 and 66. No, 16. With pale skin and black eyes, who are reportedly seen hitchhiking or panhandling, or are encountered on doorsteps of residential homes. These black-eyed kids have appeared in pop culture since the late 1990s. Their origins are 1998 postings written by Texas reporter Brian Bethel on a ghost-related mailing list. Ooh.
Ghost mail.
Yeah, there's also the Wild Man of the Navidad. I was going to ask Marty about this. The only thing I really found in Oklahoma was the Oklahoma octopus, which is another one of those sea beasts.
Why would there be an octopus in Oklahoma?
Yeah, that's
some of these motherfucking monsters.
Also, one of my favorites was the Jersey Devil of New Jersey. He had the head of a horse, wings of a bat, forked tail, hoofed goat feet. In New Jersey folklore, the Jersey Devil is a legendary creature said to inhabit the Pine Barrens of southern New Jersey, here in the U.S. of A. The creature is often described as a flying biped with hooves, but there are many different variations. Let me see. What else do I have on the Jersey Devil? Do you guys have any favorites?
I've always been partial to the chupacabra for 2 reasons. One, I just love the name. It's such an interesting and cool sounding name. I remember being a little kid and hearing just the name alone and instantly being intrigued. But it's also, I think I've also thought fondly of it, I suppose is the word, because to echo what Andrew was just saying, we're in Texas, and it being a Mexican legend, I suppose made it feel more relevant just because of our proximity to that culture. And I think it's more or less presumed nowadays that whatever people believe was the chupacabra was most likely some kind of coyote or a wolf or some hybrid thereof. But yeah, I just I don't know. I'm down with the chupacabra. Yeah. Seems like a cool guy. Sounds like he knows how to party.
Whenever I was in high school,
he likes to suck goats, and that's how you party, is by sucking some goats.
Whenever I was in high school, I dated this girl who she was really into drama and film and stuff like that, and her mom was a production assistant on a few like really low budget movies, and I remember one was I think it was called Chupacabra. She was a production assistant. I think she had a bit part on it too, and I remember it being awful, just a terrible movie. That was my story about Chupacabra.
They didn't do the Chupacabra justice.
No.
Shameful.
Her mom was a psycho.
He deserves better.
She was a psycho. What about you, Jeremy? You got any?
I'll say the favorite that I've picked just from name alone is the Groot slang, because that's a fucking cool name, Groot slang. Apparently it's a legendary, like, giant ass snake that lives in caves in South Africa. Groot slang has the head of an elephant and the body of a snake.
Holy crap.
Yeah. So it's got big ass tusks that I guess are like big ass fangs. And I guess huge Dumbo ears, and then this big snake body. It's pretty fucking scary.
We'll post there's an article that Mental Floss did, 16 cryptids might or might not exist, and we'll post that on the website with the show notes.
This one definitely doesn't exist. There's no way this one exists. It says tales of enormous tusked snakes, probably inspired by real-life sightings of enormous pythons that live in the same area, have rumbled on in South African folklore for, hundreds of years, probably.
Imagine being in South Africa, and probably two of the things that you're most frightened of, like elephants.
White people and giant animals.
Yeah, elephants and snakes coming together. That being the most frightening thing that you can think of.
Together. Joining forces.
Sexing each other.
Yeah. It seems like, as humans, one of the most common components of our fears is sex. Sex and breeding, interbreeding.
I did want to give a little bit more background on the Jersey Devil, just so we're informing people a little better. Yeah. According to legend, the creature was the unwanted 13th son of one of the state's earliest settlers, Mother Leeds, who offered her son to the devil on his birth in 1735 because she and her husband couldn't afford to raise another child. Ever since then, hundreds of reported sightings of a grotesque, two-legged, hooved monster with a sheep-like head and large, scaly wings have been reported in the Pine Barrens, including one famous incident in the winter of 1909, when a long trail of hooved footprints crossing under fences and over walls and rooftops mysteriously appeared in the snow one night. So that's a little bit of background on the Jersey Devil.
Whoa. And with that, we'll leave with a break. And when we come back from our break, we're going to talk about what might have inspired these cryptids and our fascinations with such impossible beings. What might have really been behind the thoughts that created such monsters. Goodbye, and we'll see you after the break.
say there are things better left unsolved.
Who knows what waits for us in nature's no man's land?
Impossible, unbelievable, fantastic. But I tell you, it could happen. It could happen. It could happen. It could happen.
Welcome back to Revolving Culture. We're talking about cryptozoology, and now we're going to get into why people might have thought that these creatures existed, these fantastic beasts, what psychological tricks might have been at play to make us think that these things were real. So we're going to start off with Robby. And why do you think people came home from overseas trips to tell tales of mermaids and mermen and, the sexual deviance and the sexual journeys and adventures that they embarked on with these sea humans?
That's quite the question you just asked. I think it could be said for a lot of instances of sightings of cryptids that it was more than likely some other living creature that was mistaken for something that otherwise wasn't already classified, and so example of go ahead.
Do you think maybe, okay, let's say you've got a boat full of people, they're sailing to what's now America from some European nation, and they come across a couple of women who are just like, hey, we're swimming in the ocean, we need help, and we're swimming in the ocean, we've been here for a couple of days and we're barely alive. Do you think that those people on the boat might have dismissed them as monsters and then gone back to tell the tale of these women that they met in the ocean who were mermaids?
Well, I think...
Are you asking...
I think...
If there were actual women in the ocean?
Yeah, I don't think anyone ever claimed that they saw actual women in the ocean saying that they needed help. I think usually
no. What I'm saying is, what I'm saying is that what if there were people in the ocean who needed help, and the other people were like, well, those are just monsters.
they left them to drown.
They left them to die.
I think that if somebody had actually, if they'd have come across, by happenstance, people who were, in the water looking like they were about to drown, I would hope that they would, bring them in just on the chance that it's someone who actually needs help. It's hard to say. I think.
Let me get in on this a little bit.
Please do.
I think in some of these cases, it was people in times of odd desperation who may not have had enough to eat during a voyage or on a trip out into the wilderness, and were just either delirious or anxious to see something that wasn't there. I wanted to bring up a cryptid we didn't talk about in the last segment. In the Wendigo, in Algonquin folklore, it's a cannibal monster or an evil spirit that is native to the northern forests of the Atlantic coast and Great Lakes region of both the United States and Canada. the Wendigo may appear as a monster with characteristics of a human or as a spirit who has possessed a human being and made them become monstrous. It's historically associated with cannibalism, murder, insatiable greed, and the cultural taboos against such behaviors. This can be seen in, I know one of Robby's, I don't know if it's one of your favorite movies, but I know it's a movie that you bring
I
up
already know what
sometimes.
we're talking about. Yeah, we're talking about Ravenous,
Exactly.
which was a sort of a horror, perhaps even a dark comedy film from the early 2000s. That's focused almost entirely on Wendigo lore and the idea that the act of cannibalism can impart on the person, performing the act, like renewed vigor and strength and make them something, beyond human. And it's fascinating, really interesting period piece horror film that I recommend to anybody out there who hasn't heard of it. It's really good.
I think it's on Netflix.
Yes, I believe so. Is that Robert Carlyle?
Is Guy Pearce in that?
Guy Pearce is in it. Monster Jeffrey Jones is in it.
His name's Monster Jeffrey Jones.
No, he's just been accused of doing some pretty monstrous things.
Yeah.
Really?
He's the guy from Ferris Bueller.
Yeah, he's the principal.
Oh, the Beetlejuice guy?
Yeah, and Beetlejuice.
Yeah, he is a monster.
Monster himself.
I believe it also has David Arquette in it, if I remember correctly. Yeah, great movie.
Yeah, on how those tie together, the legend lends its name to the disputed modern medical term Wendigo psychosis, which is considered by psychiatrists to be a form of culture-bound syndrome, with symptoms such as an intense craving for human flesh and fear of becoming a cannibal. For anybody who doesn't know, culture-bound syndrome only occurs within people of a certain region or well, it's in the name itself, culture. It's exactly what it sounds like. In this case, it was these native tribes who focused on this idea of cannibalism, either making you stronger or that once you go out into the wilderness, you'll be consumed by this need to consume human flesh. But perhaps it was just a way of explaining when times got tough, you had to resort to the worst.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we've seen that in our own, I guess, more not so Native American people who went out and didn't fare so well in the weather, and the climates got the better of them, and so they ate their boots, and then when their boots were gone, they ate each other. And if we had the lore and the legends of the Wendigo about us, some of those people might have told the tale of the Wendigo visiting their the horrors of their adventure.
Yeah, and you spoke of mermen or mermaids, and that could have been attributed to people who've just been out at sea for too long, didn't have fresh food other than maybe the fish they caught and fresh water all the time. And
maybe they saw a really sexy whale or something.
Yeah, could be just a sexy.
Yeah, I think that could be part of the argument is that these were people who were going without that comfort for months at a time, and
let's just say
your mind starts to.
Can we just say it?
We'll say it. We'll say it. We're saying it now.
It's sort of like when you think that you're a farmer and you're very vulnerable because there are wild animals who want to eat your crops and your
livestock.
in your livestock. You know, they want to eat your sheep and your cows and stuff. And
Hot
you
goat
think
that you have.
you think that there's this creature that comes around and fucks your goats and makes them pregnant, but really it's just your neighbor Ted, and he comes around and fucks your cows and stuff. It's, you know, that's the stuff. That's what legends are born of. Well, we're gonna, I guess, talk about the movies and popular fiction that have featured cryptozoological animals and stuff like that. One of the movies that comes to my mind when I think of an unbelievable creature that's being hunted and wants to be proven by humans is Anaconda. Nicki Minaj wrote this song about Anaconda based on Sir Mix-a-Lot's the Big Butt song. What's it called?
Baby
I
Got
Like Big
Back.
Butts.
Baby Got Back.
Baby Got Back. It's based on Baby Got Back. It's pretty much a remix of Baby Got Back.
Samples.
With lots of samples from Sir Mix-a-Lot's song, but Nicki Minaj threw in some really key lyrics about anacondas and having a fat butt, and it's just unbelievable. And I feel like it really fits into cryptozoology. Jennifer Lopez.
I can't argue with logic like that. I mean,
Jennifer Lopez has an anaconda butt.
Was that the joke that you were going to
That was the joke. Oh man, it didn't go over well.
it was funny. Maybe not for the reason that you intended, but it was funny.
You guys remember the movie Anaconda, right?
Naturally, yes.
I wanted to hint at the movie
John
Anaconda. I wanted to hint at the movie.
John Voight and his bad Cajun accent.
Oh, God.
Yeah. And that big ass snake.
Ice Cube. Ice Cube was in it.
trouser snake.
Yeah. In Anacondas, in that song, in both songs, they're more referred to as penises, right? They're
Yeah. Well, that's what they're hinting at.
referencing penis size.
Right. It's like, 20 feet long.
Yeah. Which would be, I guess, would that be a cryptid? Like a 20-foot penis.
Okay. We can get
that
into the
nobody's
technicalities of it because the largest measured anaconda, that like real anaconda snake, is like 17 feet long. But people have reported anacondas as being as long as like 30 fucking feet. But we know that when people are eyeballing length, they don't know what the fuck they're talking about. Because you can eyeball something, like you look at an airplane that's up in the sky, you eyeball it, it's like 6 inches long. But an airplane is like, what, 30, 40 feet long? But when it's up, what is up in the sky, it looks really small, right? So, come on. People are full of shit, and they don't know what they're doing.
Are we still talking about Sir Mix-a-Lot's penis?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
We gotta finish this. We've got to finish
Well,
this.
I'm gonna put all this in the episode.
Please.
But okay, what examples do you guys have?
Okay. I just have a few. There's Willow Creek, which was directed by Bobcat Goldthwait. It was a found footage film that kind of follows the same line of horror that Blair Witch Project did. I watched that recently. It was okay. There's also, speaking of Blair Witch Project, the director of that, Eduardo Sanchez, made a movie called Exists, which is similar to Willow Creek in that it's a found footage film about Bigfoot. One thing about Willow Creek, going back, Willow Creek is like the capital of Bigfoot country or something. It's just a small swath of really beautiful land in Humboldt County, California. People are really into it. There are Bigfoot-themed restaurants. You can buy gifts at shops and things like that. I also had Harry and the Hendersons, a 1987 American fantasy comedy film directed and produced by William Deere and starring John Lithgow. Steven Spielberg actually served as the uncredited executive producer of this film. And then Lake Placid. The only thing I remember about that is that Oliver Platt was in it. That's all I had.
Oliver Platt was in it, and they cracked a lot of jokes. And there was a big fucking crocodile in the lake.
Did you see it? Have you seen it?
Yeah.
Was it good?
It was good when I saw it. I don't know if it's probably not good anymore. Robby?
Well, my favorite example, we've already discussed, that being Ravenous. As an example of the Wendigo creature idea. Beyond that, nothing immediately comes to mind, which, I'm sure there's examples we're overlooking, but this seems like, rife territory for films to explore, these creatures that the next best examples I can think of are, just outright fantasy films that, might have things like unicorns or, just totally fantastic beasts that no one really claims to have ever seen, but
or know where to find them.
Yeah.
Does Leprechaun fall under cryptozoology?
I would say so, yeah, because people have claimed
they're real.
I think they're out there, yeah. Little Warwick Davis just running around.
What was that video you showed me, Robby, about the leprechaun? That was
the leprechaun site. Yes, it's a famous viral video of a community of people that were in the midst of leprechaun fever.
What?
You speak to they speak to a gentleman who has he has a special leprechaun stick that was handed down to him.
What?
From generations before, and you get a really nice sketch up of the leprechaun that was cited, and yeah, everybody who's seen the leprechaun say yeah.
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 I think we've talked about enough cryptids for one night, and there probably won't be another one. So if you want to learn about any more, and there are a fucking ton of cryptids and loads of monsters that people think are real, you can check out our website at www.revolvingculture.com. We'll have the show notes up about this episode and loads of links leading you to information about these cryptids and other cryptozoological interests. I hope that we tickled your fancy and gave you a little something to think about. This was a little different, a little bit of a different episode than the usual. And Andrew and Robby and myself bid you farewell and a good night, and keep the cryptids close, but keep your cryptids closer. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.